Welcome, everybody, to the Cover 2 podcast. My name is Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And today we have another action-packed show for you guys today. Of course, the March Madness tournament is going on. We have the MLB regular season that starts tomorrow, so we'll be predicting who we think will win all the divisions, who will make the playoffs, who will get to the World Series, and we will also start the show by talking about the recent NFL news. Obviously, we had some spring meetings with the owners and some of the head coaches in the NFL. And so we have some very interesting rule changes that have happened, since they've had these meetings. But I actually want to start the show by talking about the retirement of Rob Gronkowski, because it kind of came as a shock to me this week that he did retire. I know, obviously, a lot of people did think that it was imminent that Gronk was going to leave the NFL. Obviously, he has a big personality off of the field, but he still was a major contributor to the Super Bowl winning team. So I at least was surprised this early in the offseason that he did decide to retire. But yeah, so Rob Gronkowski's retired. Jared, what did you think when the news came down that Gronk will not be playing in the NFL anymore?
You know what? I'm really not surprised. There was a lot of rumors going on really the past few off seasons that is Gronk going to retire? Is he going to come back and play with all the injuries he's had? I mean, when you look at him on the field, he looks like a gladiator. Not only does he have all of his actual football gear on with the shoulder pads and his helmet, he's got an elbow brace. He has a knee brace. I mean, the guy has had elbow surgery, knee surgery. He's been banged up, and he's such a big guy that physically, I think he's at a point right now to where he's saying, okay, my body is just starting to recover. Do I want to go through another grueling season? I've won multiple championships. I'm just coming off winning a championship. I'm kind of riding off into the sunset, so to speak.
Yep.
So I think, at least for right now, mentally, he's saying, man, I want to go party and I want to go hang out. I don't want to go train and have to get ready for the season again.
Why would you?
You know, exactly. So it was interesting, though, because Drew Rosenhaus, which is Gronk's agent, came out and kind of left the door cracked, let's say, for Gronk to make a return and come out of retirement at some point later on in the season, basically saying that, if the Patriots get into Week 10 or Week 11 of the regular season next year, and whether they're fighting for a playoff spot or whether they just need some juice, don't rule out Tom Brady potentially calling Gronk and saying, hey, man, I need you. I need my buddy. I need my security blanket. And I think Gronk would actually seriously consider it, because think about it. By that time, his body would, more than likely be healed. He'd probably be feeling a lot better. And I think with veterans, that happens a lot. When you get through a season, it doesn't matter if it's your first year or if you've played for 10 years. Every single year, you're going to have bumps and bruises. And no one escapes the season, right, like 100% healthy. Yeah. You're going to have some type of nagging injury, whether it's serious or whether it's minor. And so I think when you get into the off season, you're kind of saying, all right, my body aches, I need to take some time off. And then as you start to feel better, mentally you're like, oh man, I can kind of do this again. It's like same thing with Brett Favre, right? He retires, comes back. Same thing with Michael Jordan. I mean, there's so many players in multiple different sports that we can sit here and talk about and say they retired and we saw them come back and play again. So I'm definitely not ruling out a return for Gronk. But I think right now it's not surprising. He's going to go make a movie. I don't know. He's going to go start his own... who knows? He's going to go and start his own, probably spring break, vacation
I didn't
service.
think you were going to go there, but that is probably what he's going to do.
I don't know, man. Yeah. He's going to do some type of crazy Gronk type thing, and guess what? He won't be physically hurting his body.
No.
So he will do that, but watch out for a Tom Brady phone call later on next year.
It just depends on what physically hurting your body you mean, but there are definitely ways during spring break where you could physically hurt your body.
True.
But, Gronk definitely has a personality off the field, and he will get into something. He will continue to make money doing something that will be entertaining. As a professional wrestling fan myself, he's been involved in that before. There's a lot of rumors that he might get into that a year or two from now. That would be very interesting, obviously, but he's only 29 years old. So probably a lot of people are thinking he was probably in his mid-30s. No, this isn't Jason Witten. This is, he's had a lot of injuries, so he probably seems a lot older than he actually is. But Rob Gronkowski, he definitely could come back. What if the Patriots do something like this, Jared? What if they have him? They go, okay, we want you to come back after our bye week every single year. So their bye week is like week 10 every single year, and Gronk's like, that's when Gronk shows up. He's healthy, he's ready to go for the playoffs. Because I don't know how the reserved retirement list works, which is the list they put him on, but I just think that'd be very interesting if Gronk was kind of like a hired gun in a way to come back later in the season. Because, yeah, I mean, if he wants to come back, I feel like he definitely could still play. He just won a Super Bowl. But if he wants to ride off into the sunset, he'll have definitely enough opportunities outside of football, like you mentioned, to where he's not going to be bored. You know, we might talk about another retirement of somebody a little later on this show, and that person also has a lot of stuff on the outside of their sport, too. So, you know, for Gronk, 3-time Super Bowl champion, 5-time Pro Bowler, and probably the only reason he wasn't Pro Bowl every single year is because of some of the injuries. 4-time first team All-Pro, which means he was the best tight end in football for 4 years. He's the NFL receiving touchdowns, or excuse me, in 2011 he led the league in touchdowns for receiving touchdowns. And he almost had over 8,000 receiving yards as the tight end in the minimal years that he played in the NFL, because he only played from 2010 on. So a lot of great stats there for Gronk. Obviously, he was a little injury prone, and I don't think we'd be talking about retirement if he hadn't been so injury prone. But nonetheless, the guy has accomplished enough and will go down to be one of the greatest tight ends to ever play. And maybe the greatest tight end to ever play.
He's definitely in the discussion.
Yeah.
You have a couple of other guys, Tony Gonzalez, and Tony. I mean, there are other guys that are in the discussion, at least from this generation, that we can talk about. But he will definitely be there. If he's not a first ballot, then he'll definitely be in there in the next ballot. But I did want to make a quick point on piggybacking off what you were saying, that, you know, the Patriots could maybe bring Gronk back after their bye week. And I actually like that strategy because, okay, let's say Gronk goes the first 9 or 10 weeks of the season, well, basically from now until then. Yeah. And he's obviously not going to be training like he used to. Maybe he still works out, but not with the focus and the mentality of, I'm playing football, so I need to watch my diet, you know, work out, all of that stuff. So if they bring him back on a bye week, that kind of gives him an extra week to get acclimated.
Of course.
Obviously, he'll know the actual offensive system and that type of stuff. But to get yourself an extra week to get in shape, kind of get around the guys again, get a feel for the pads and all that stuff, I think that makes a lot of sense. The Cowboys actually last year tried to do the same thing with Jason Witten and pull him out of the Monday Night Football booth during their bye week, but he said no.
Yeah, didn't the Saints did that with Des Bryant? But we all forgot because he tore his ACL.
He ended up tearing his on the first or second day of practice.
So that I guess that's a concern. But if Gronk is going there just to win a Super Bowl, I don't really necessarily think he cares if he gets hurt.
Right.
So,
and it actually happens in other situations as well. The Cowboys, when they traded for Amari Cooper last year, did so during their bye week.
It's smart because you want that extra week. Was that then you have, whenever the trade went down, let's just say it went down on a Monday, you have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then the next week also a practice before that next game. And it wasn't like the Cowboys, the Cowboys were struggling at that point, so they did need a boost, but you get that extra 5 days of a guy that's already been playing during the regular season. It can't be that hard to figure out some of the playbook, right? It's not like every NFL playbook, all the plays are completely different. There's a lot of similar plays.
It's really terminology, right? I mean, listen, you're going to run a stop route. There's like one way to run a stop route, but it can be called 5 different things.
Well, and also the way your quarterback throws it, how hard he can throw it, stuff like that.
Yeah, actually, luckily for the Cowboys, now that I'm remembering, they actually had a Monday night game. So not only did they get that whole week off, they had that following week to prepare. In that specific situation, I know we're getting a little bit off topic, yes, it would be a smart move if the Patriots were thinking of bringing Gronk back to do it, during a bye week when he can get acclimated and give him that extra week to come back and get prepared. Because Bill Belichick, when if and when, and this is obviously, this is all speculation right now, but if Gronk comes back, Bill Belichick is not going to care whether it's a bye week or not. He's going to expect Gronk to be Gronk.
Gronk should know the playbook, too.
Exactly. So, bye week or not, if Gronk does come back, which, I'm just going to come out on a limb and say that he's going to come back. Okay? I'm going to say he's going to go out.
You heard it here first.
He's going to party. He's going to go crazy. he's going to do something stupid, and he's going to be sitting at home one night saying, "Oh, I miss Tom Brady. I miss my guys."
Yeah.
And he's gonna probably call them, or Tom Brady's going to call Gronk, and they're going to, have the mutual agreements come back. I'm calling it right now. Gronk will come back. He will get bored eventually. He'll want to go hit somebody.
Yeah.
Even though he plays tight end, he's going to want to go punch someone in the mouth and score some touchdowns and spike a football. So Gronk will come back at some point next year. Mark my words.
Yeah, and to be honest, even if he doesn't come back, Patriots probably win the Super Bowl anyways next year. Regardless. I don't know. I'm just saying.
The Browns are looking pretty good right about now.
Okay, well that's a whole that's a whole different story. If we're gonna be picking the Browns over the Patriots.
Hey man, I'm just saying they're Super Bowl favorites.
Okay, but you know what we do with the Jaguars every year.
Oh my gosh,
we're always wrong about the Jaguars.
Always.
We're always wrong about the Patriots too, because none of us ever predicted they're gonna win the Super Bowl. So, maybe we should start picking the Patriots. That's what I'm doing next year. I'm just gonna pick the Patriots or the Cardinals. One of those two teams win the Super Bowl, and if I'm wrong, then it's whatever. But all right, so let's move on. Before we get to those rule changes, I just want to get some of the NFL stuff out of the way. Jeremy Maclin also retired from the NFL.
Really?
Yeah, he.
Okay.
I forget who he was playing for last year. Did he even play last year?
Jeremy Maclin, if I'm not mistaken,
wide receiver.
Yes, wide receiver. I believe he got drafted by the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken.
He was with the Eagles, and then he ended up with the Chiefs.
He did have a stint with the Chiefs. I think he had a small stint with the Ravens. He kind of bounced around. He had some injuries, and coming out of college, he was a top wide receiver, and he never really flourished into that, first round number one receiving threat. When he went to Kansas City, he was kind of like, this is my second opportunity, and that didn't really pan out in Andy Reid's offense. And so from there, I think he might have went to Baltimore for a hot second.
He went to Baltimore, and then he signed with the Eagles, but I believe was released before the season even started.
Okay.
And so he actually didn't play last year.
Basically just fizzled out of the league.
That's what I thought. Now, because when I heard I saw a tweet of him. It was during the reveal of the gender of his kid, one of those gender reveals. And he announced that he was going to be retiring, and this is what he was going to be focused on or whatever. But I was like, man, who did he play for? I couldn't think of it. And then, so he didn't play for anybody. So it makes sense. So Jeremy Maclin is retiring. Also, we have two more signings that we definitely wanted to mention. Justin Houston was signed by the Colts, 2 years, $24 million. So
I think that's a great pickup.
Well, they were also going after D Ford, which I heard. So they get a Chiefs linebacker. Maybe not the one they wanted, but Justin Houston, he fits into that defense well.
The Colts defense was very underrated last year. And I remember the Cowboys played the Colts later on in the season, and the Colts whooped them up and down the field. That defense is...
Colts are good, then.
The defense is legit, and the fact that they get to now add another pass rusher, even though he's a little bit older, I think he's close to 30, if not 30, but the veteran leadership that he's going to bring to that locker room, he can come in on passing situations. He doesn't have to be there on every down like he was in Kansas City. I think that's a big pickup, and it's only a 2-year deal. So for some reason it doesn't work. I think it's a team-friendly deal where the Colts can get out of it. I think it's a win-win for them and a big boost for that pass rush.
No, definitely. It's always nice to get a veteran linebacker, someone that is one of the best linebackers in the league too, and you get to get him this late in free agency too. Great deal for the Indianapolis Colts. Jared Cook, former tight end for the Oakland Raiders, he's signing a 2-year deal worth $15.5 million with the New Orleans Saints. NFC South, you gotta watch out for that one. That is a dangerous combination. We're talking about Jimmy Graham, Drew Brees, kind of reconnection there. That is dangerous. I really like that, and I'm surprised Jared Cook didn't sign anywhere else, to be honest. I'm surprised it took him this long to sign.
So the Patriots, once they found out that Gronk was retiring, they kind of came back at the last minute to try to steal Jared Cook from the Saints. The rumor was, and now it is official, that Jared Cook has signed with the Saints. But as of last week, the Patriots are trying to get back into the bidding war, and Jared Cook said, no, I'm going to stay with the Saints. I mean, listen, those are both two great teams to go to. Obviously, the Patriots, Super Bowl winning team, and the Saints, very, very close with another, soon-to-be Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees. He could have, either way, he's going to be double digits in touchdowns, more than likely, hopefully close to 1,000 yards receiving. Jared Cook is a very... underrated. I'm going to say underrated tight end, because when you think of tight ends, obviously you think of Gronk, you think of Travis Kelce. Jared Cook is kind of, I feel like he's in that middle tier. I mean, listen, he's bounced around in the NFL.
He was in middle tier last year.
No, he
Very
wasn't.
good
He was
last
very, very good with an average quarterback.
Yeah.
So what he will do with a great, like I said, soon-to-be Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees, I'm very excited. I have him in one of my deep fantasy football leagues.
There's the bias
so
right there. Yeah.
I'm very, very excited. I wasn't going to re-sign him, but now I am. So just for everyone who was very curious about my fantasy football league, yes, I am going to re-sign Jared Cook, and I'm expecting big things out of Jared Cook. Thank you very much. I think that is a big signing for them because I'm looking at their depth chart right now, and right now they have
just going to bring out the depth chart. That's
Josh Hill, Dan Arnold,
so they have nobody then.
Garrett Griffin.
Yeah, they had nobody.
No offense, but I had not heard of any of those three names.
Yeah, those
before.
are below average.
Yes.
Players.
So you pair him with Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara. They do lose Mark Ingram. So Latavius Murray, the running back formerly of the Minnesota Vikings, comes in to replace him. So we'll see how that plays out. But as far as the tight end position goes, to have a big body guy that Drew Brees can throw to in red zone situations, I think will be huge for that team.
No, that will be big. And I believe earlier this offseason, the Saints did procure some money from Drew Brees' contract. Now, I know his cap hit is like $40 million next year or something because of that. But I think this was a way to get Jared Cook on this team. So, low-key, Drew Brees kind of made this happen too. Next year, we'll see what happens with that contract being essentially doubled what it was. But so Jared Cook signs with the Saints. They're obviously going for it, and they should have been in the Super Bowl last year. And that's a perfect transition, Jared, to what we're going to talk about next. Obviously, if you remember this offseason, this postseason, the Saints were screwed by a pass interference non-call. You obviously remembered, if you're a football fan, LaMarcus Joyner came up and lit up one of the Saints wide receivers. I don't remember who it was, but it was a big play, and it was in a time in the game where the Saints, if this play or this call would have been called, they likely would have just ran out the rest of the clock, and the Rams wouldn't have had a chance, and the Rams wouldn't have gone to the Super Bowl to score a measly 3 points. So now the NFL had its spring meetings, and what came out of that was the fact that pass interference calls are now reviewable. And Jared and I were talking about this extensively before the podcast. There still will only be 2 challenges for each team, so you're not getting an extra challenge. But you were talking about how this could definitely slow down the game because there are so many pass interference calls in games. Jared, I want to ask you this before I'll let you get your take on it, but is this going to set a bad precedent for the NFL to where almost all penalties in the future are going to have to be reviewed?
I think it will. I think that's the road that they're going down. And first of all, I do want to say, for people who maybe don't know, every team starts out with 2 challenges per game. If that team wins both of the challenges, say the head coach throws the challenge flag twice, if you win both of those challenges, then you get an extra challenge. Yeah. So there's an opportunity for 3 challenges in a game, but you start off with 2. But going more to these rules, I don't like this rule. I really don't like this rule for a multitude of reasons. Number one, this is a judgment call, right? And you can say a lot of rules, a lot of penalties are judgment calls, but this one specifically is very much a judgment call, right? It happens on the fly. And the thing is, this was such a horrific non-call that it doesn't take a rocket scientist. You could have never watched a football game in your entire life. You could be a 4 or 5-year-old, and you can understand that was pass interference and that you are not allowed to go and physically impede on someone else's progress like the way Roby Coleman did. So I think because this was so blatant and obvious that it should have been very easy. I don't think that the NFL should have come down and said, okay, we need to have a complete rule change to where now this is reviewable, because like you mentioned, I think this is only opening the door, or at least cracking the door open for other penalties to now be reviewed. And eventually, the NFL is going to get to a point, and I think it already is as a former football player, to where the game is slowed down way too much. And a lot of people are going to say, well, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, number one, there are way too many commercials in the game. And I understand the NFL needs to get their ratings and their sponsorships and all that stuff. There's way too many timeouts, way too many commercials, to where players, you wonder why there are so many more injuries in today's sport. It's because there's so much start and stop and start and stop. And obviously there will be start and stop when the flow of play is going, because it's not like basketball where you can go up and down the court for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But when you have a timeout, when you have a stoppage for a replay, which can take up to 3 or 4 minutes, guys get cold, right? So when your body, when you're not warm anymore, when you're not sweating, when you get cold and you start to cramp up or whatever, that's when injuries occur. And by allowing coaches to now review more plays, that's only going to slow the pace of the game down. And I think that's going to, in effect, get players out of their rhythm. And I think it can actually cause more injuries. So I'm not saying that it will be a direct effect of that, but I think that it's something that the NFL needs to seriously consider, the amount of stoppages of play during a game and the flow of the game. So I think that's one thing that is really going to affect the game, and I'm not a fan of it at all.
I mean, just based on how the NFL operates right now, they don't care about the stop. They only care about money. I honestly just think the top brass of the NFL is just like any conglomerate giant company here in the U.S. that just is trying to make money and panders to their base of customers when something is thrown at them. And this is exactly what they did in this situation. They have a horrible pass interference call that, in my opinion and a lot of other people's opinion, put the wrong team in the Super Bowl this year. Not that the Rams weren't a great team and a Super Bowl contender, but the way that game flowed, that call would have left so minimal time on the clock that you'd never bet the Rams would win that game after that call. It would have been a 99% chance the Saints win that game. But you don't need to change the rule. Just make the referees more accountable. You've brought up a ton of times the referees should be full-time employees. They should be paid a lot more than they do. They should, exactly, year-round. And so I think that's where you go with this. You don't just go and change the rule, because now here's what's going to happen. I know pass interference is a very fascinating thing to watch when it happens. You're almost every single pass that's thrown up, if your guy doesn't catch it, you're looking to see, was there pass interference? So I get it. Probably is the most entertaining penalty as far as what goes on with the game, but all it's going to do is make it so that holdings on third downs are then reviewable. The hands of the face are reviewable, stuff like that, where it's like, and then every single penalty that's called in a 2-minute span, because obviously during the game you only have 2 challenges, like you said, maybe 3. So you're not going to have too many stoppages. You're going to have normal amount of stoppages. Even if you're challenging a pass interference, that just means you can't challenge them 2 feet in later in the game. So you got to really watch out for it. But what it's going to do is later in the NFL's lifetime, when they do make it so that essentially every penalty is reviewable too, in those 2-minute periods where teams can't challenge, we're going to have a review after every single play.
Yeah. After
every single play. And people want to say that, we're going to talk about the MLB season at the end of the show, but people want to say baseball is slow and baseball is boring or whatever. I mean, the NFL is going to get to that point if it keeps doing this stuff. And it's almost like we're just letting it happen because football is so entertaining to us. But it's going to start, I mean, it's already starting to drive people away already. And another rule change we're going to talk about in a second is also going to drive some people away from watching it and stuff like that. But I just feel like the NFL, they're just pandering to their base again. Typical, all they care about is money, and I just don't see a change.
No, I do want to bring up one point, and people might say that I'm saying this because I'm a Cowboys fan. Well, I am, but this also brings up, I think this applies to what we're talking about. And that's a few years back when the Cowboys were playing the Packers in the playoff game in Green Bay. Des Bryant, the whole catch no catch, right? And obviously it was not deemed a catch. Well, what was it? Over a year later, when the NFL came out and actually said it was a catch, he had 2 feet, all that stuff, right? Yeah. Well, in that instance, because I mean that was obviously a big deal as well. The Cowboys would have had a legit opportunity to win that game, just like the Saints would have had a very good opportunity to win that game if that pass interference would have been called. Well, you didn't see a drastic rule change right away the following season or the following offseason after that Des Bryant no catch. So, it's just interesting that the NFL once again they play by their own rules, and in certain situations they will drastically change things right away. And in other situations, as in with the Des Bryant catch no catch, it takes almost 3 years for the NFL to come to an agreement on what is a catch and what is not a catch. So it's just, once again, I think the NFL is somewhat all over the place in what they're doing. And as you can tell, this one is not sitting well.
No.
For a lot of reasons. Listen, if I'm a team, and you have a challenge left, throw a Hail Mary.
Oh, seriously?
Throw a Hail Mary pass. If you're on the 45 or the 50-yard line, throw a Hail Mary pass in the end zone.
That's a great point.
The chances of you completing that catch are small. But guess what? If you don't complete it, throw the flag and say, I want you to go look at every single receiver and find a penalty. What is going to stop a team from doing that? Because if you think about it, on every play, like if you're a lineman, if you're an offensive lineman versus defensive lineman, there's almost holding, like technically on every single play, right?
Play, yeah.
Same thing. I played cornerback in high school and in my first year in college. There's almost some type of like holding or grabbing on both sides of the ball, receivers and defensive backs, on almost every single play. So if you really want to get technical about it, referees can probably find some type of holding or something like that on every single play. So if I'm a team and I'm like, I don't know, it's 3rd and 5 or whatever,
just throw it
and
as
I'm
far
on the
as you
50,
can.
throw it as far as you can, and if you don't complete it, throw the flag.
See,
and you're probably going to find something, and you're going to get the ball first and goal, and then you're going to go and
well,
score.
I think we've gone a little off topic here. The holding is not reviewable.
It's not reviewable, I'm sorry, I was trying to use that as an example.
But you're right. Pass interference, I could almost guarantee happens on a Hail Mary every single time because everybody's going up for the ball. There are people bumping into each other. Now, I know people are going for the ball that technically isn't a penalty, and that's where maybe this review could actually work out, is that sometimes when players are just going for the ball, that's not pass interference. You can bump a player if you want. But, yeah, no, I do believe that that there's going to be some weird stuff. I know, for example, in hockey, they changed it so that offsides was reviewable. So now almost every single time a hockey team is a goal is scored in like the last 2 minutes of a game, and let's say if the score was 3-3, and they make this goal makes it 4-3, that team will just throw a challenge and just be like, let's see if they're offsides.
Yeah,
slows down the game a bit. Now hockey's a generally fast game, so it's not a big problem, but there are complaints in that realm that why is like offsides being reviewed? It's not reviewed in soccer. It's not. Why is so? It is that same thing where there's a lot of complaining or whatever, and then eventually they change a rule. I don't think that's the way to do it. I think you just have to examine it and go, is this good for the game? If it's not good for the game, then we probably shouldn't do it. But the NFL doesn't think about that. They go, the people that are sending us money want this rule change, so let's just change it, right? Or the Cowboys, who have a huge fan base. The Des Bryant misses the ball or whatever on 4th down, and all of a sudden we got to change the rule a year later. And that rule has also been like nobody knows what the catch is now because of what happened with there. So it's very interesting. I did want to bring up too. We got about a minute left in this segment. No blindside blocks anymore, which is going to eliminate those giant YouTube montages of just guys getting lit up. What did you think about this rule? They cited that. Some weird statistic of concussions happen with blindside blocks. It's hard to argue with that, but I feel like you could come up with statistics on anything, and I just feel like the NFL is going to become like flag football.
Well, no, it is, and there are certain things that happen in a football game, like I said,
football's violent, guys.
I'm gonna bang my head in the wall on this one. Like, there's a reason, number one, why guys wear shoulder pads and helmets, and there are certain things that happen in a football game.
Because the ground is hard,
Like there's certain things that happen in a football game that it's a part of football. And the biggest problem that I have with the majority of the rules that get passed or even don't get passed sometime is the people that are in charge and that have the opportunity to make these rules or change these rules, I'm sorry, a lot of these people are business people. They have not played football on a professional level and probably even a collegiate level. So they are all business people who have a financial stake in this, and they're trying to change this because this will eventually affect their, in a positive way, affect their bottom line. So I think the people that actually need to be making these rules and have a strong say on this are people who have actually played this game like on a professional level before.
I agree with that
because they are the ones that know what it's like to be on the field. I don't understand how someone who has zero experience playing football, has never, put shoulder pads on in their entire life, can sit here and tell someone else, oh, this is the way the game needs to be played. So I think that's the biggest the biggest issue that I have is a lot of these people that sit, in their fancy suits and sit up top and are, best friends with Roger Goodell, and they make all these rules, and yet they have not played football before, at least on a professional and, like I said, most likely even a collegiate level. But yet they're the ones making all these rules, telling people how this is how the game needs to be played when they've never played it. So that's the biggest issue I have.
Yeah, that's you can talk about that with politics, everything too.
Right.
There's a lot of people deciding for people that they have no idea what's going on. So, real quick, we had a comment on Facebook from my friend Alexander. He said tight ends are going to be hard to cover if DBs can't hold them.
Of course.
Like that too.
Here's the thing.
Which I completely
Here's
agree
the thing.
with.
Within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, you are allowed to grab a hold of
the hell out
and
of tight ends.
Yeah, and
right?
then after that 5 yards, you can't. You have to release, and you have to just run with that receiver or tight end or running back. But within 5 yards, you can kind of push them off of their route and kind of grab them. You can't force them to the ground, but you can alter their route within 5 yards.
100%.
Who knows? Eventually, that 5 yards is going to go away, and then the score is going to be 100 to 110.
Yeah.
And
it's going to be like basketball, where
there's
there's going to be
no
150
defense.
points
There's
a
going to
game,
be no defense.
and you can't watch the first half of NBA games because you know it's going to be 100 to 100 later in the game.
Right.
All right, we need to go to break. We're going to be coming back talking about how bad my March Madness bracket was today, and we were going to analyze the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 matchups, which is the ones this weekend, and go over why Duke almost lost to UCF last weekend, and I'm going to give a little credit to UC Irvine. I was correct about them winning. I was not correct about them going to the Sweet 16. But we're going to be going on break here on the Cover 2 podcast, on Facebook Live, and on OC Rock Radio.
Waters makes his move. 3 seconds. Waters to the rim. Layup. Good! 1.6. Maryland has no timeouts. Ayala, three-quarter court. It's over. March equals madness.
Here's Stokes on a 3. The tip, no, and it is over. The 13-seeded UC Irvine Anteaters have stunned Kansas State. Their first ever NCAA tournament victory.
A free throw to tie it. 5 out of 6 at the line. Missed it. Comes up short, too. Barrett follows it up for the lead. And then with 11 seconds. Here we go. Inbound out to Taylor. Jones is on him. Taylor driving. Driving in. Banks it up. No. Put back. In and out. And Duke survives. Just barely.
Welcome back to the Cover 2 podcast. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We wrapped up our first segment of the show with some NFL talk, going over rule changes and Rob Gronkowski's retirement. So if you missed that live, go back later today and you can check that out on YouTube and Facebook. But for now, we're moving on to March Madness, and the Sweet 16 is coming up starting tomorrow. Nick and I have both filled out multiple brackets. We're doing, I would say, so-so.
Yeah.
I'm actually doing pretty decent. I think Nick had, in one of his main brackets, a lot of upsets that did not happen.
I went for the win with the money, the people I'm doing it with.
Right.
So, but I do have a bracket that is 91% correct, in the 91st percentile, whatever it is. So I do have a bracket that was pretty good, but that was not necessarily my own opinion of things. It was just mainly a bracket to cheat the one that I knew was going to suck. So I'm not taking any credit for this. I'll just come out and say it. I was dead wrong with what I predicted on my bracket. I actually did believe this year that there wouldn't be a lot of upsets, and I just, you get a little, whatever, you get a little tournament challenge fingers going, and you start picking upsets, and you go, oh, Vermont, nobody knows who they are, pick them. You know what I'm saying? Like, stuff like that. So it's like, I picked brackets for the more fun of it and to see if I could really, really get some, get some upsets going. But, you know, as far as what has happened, I'm actually not surprised what has happened in this March Madness tournament. I think 12 of the teams are 1, 2, and 3 seeds so far, which is amazing. I haven't seen that in a while. And then, you have Oregon, who's a pretty good team, the lowest seed or the highest seed in there. I think they probably were the best team out of those higher seeds to get in. So not surprised at all at how the March Madness bracket ended up being. But as far as what I did in my March Madness bracket, it totally sucked. It was not. I was horrible with it. I've been, hoping that certain teams lose just so that I give myself a chance. But I'll let Jared take it away with what he did, because I know he did a lot better than I did.
Yeah, no, I kind of stuck with more of the top teams in one of my main brackets, and I just felt this year there was a lot of strong competition at top. I mean, 3 ACC teams as number 1 seeds with Duke, North Carolina, and Virginia. And even though, especially with Zion Williams being injured for Duke and losing him for about 5 or 6 games towards the end of the year, there was never really that clear cut, oh my gosh, this team is just above and beyond everyone else. There were just a lot of very good teams in this tournament. I mean, you can make a case for North Carolina, Virginia, Michigan State, Michigan, Gonzaga, Duke. They were just a handful of teams that you can say, you know what, this team has a chance to win. This team has a chance to win. So with saying that, that's kind of one of the reasons why I have a lot of the higher seeds going into this Sweet 16 matchup. But really quickly, I did want to talk about that Duke UCF game, because that game was crazy. I don't know if you did see that.
Scared people so much.
Oh my gosh. I'm pretty sure Duke was easily the number 1 choice as far as team to win the championship, or people that were picking Duke to win. And the fact that Duke escaped that win. Duke should have lost that game. I'm sorry.
110%.
Duke should have lost.
Yeah.
If R.J. Barrett does not get that offensive rebound after that Zion Williams free throw miss and put it back in, I think Duke loses.
Well, how about if just for no reason that tip missed for UCF? The way he tipped that ball, the UCF player, I don't know who it was, the way he tipped that ball with a second to go, how it bounced off the backboard, it 100% should have won.
Yeah. But then let's see, how about UCF on the opposite end when they have an opportunity to score a basket and actually win, and the ball literally hits almost every part of the rim,
and then
amazing. Falls off.
No, it was what I thought about is because Taco Fall, the 7'6" center for UCF,
he had fouled out.
He had just fouled out, and you're thinking if he's in there now, they probably would have boxed him out specifically so that he didn't have a chance. If he's up there, though, he's dunking that back for a dunk, and they win.
Easily.
Right? So it's like, what we're trying to say is not that UCF would have won the national championship or anything like that, but UCF should have won that game. And it's something for Duke to think about going into this Sweet 16 and Elite 8, because they technically shouldn't be there. And, they're going to face a good Virginia Tech team, that knows them because they're from the ACC, and then potentially face a Michigan State or an LSU who've been great teams this year in the Elite 8. And right now, I'm still going to pick Duke because I have them in my national championship, but it's a little more difficult of a decision when they face those really good teams potentially in the Elite 8.
Well, see, the problem that I've had with Duke, and this is what I've had all year with them, has been their shooting.
Yeah.
Their defense has always been great. Trey Jones is one of the best guard defenders, if not the best guard defender in all of college basketball. Obviously, Zion Williams, we know the freak athlete he is. He can basically guard anyone on the floor. We know R.J. Barrett with his length, his wing length. We know that what he can do on the defensive side of the ball. So, defensively, we know that they're going to be in games. But can Duke score, for jump shots? Can they threes? They are one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country. And they're also one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the country. I believe they're 316th in college basketball in free throw shooting. So when you compare the fact that they are a bad three-point shooting team and a bad free throw shooting team, those are two things that will directly affect your results in this tournament. So you go up against an Auburn team that made 27 threes in their last game. and a North Carolina team that loves to run up and down. I mean, listen, Duke, they won this game because they had Zion Williams. If Zion Williams was not in this game, maybe he had a double-double. I believe he had 30-something points
and Zion
and 11
still
rebounds.
missed the free throw, too.
Exactly. No Zion, there's no chance this team wins. This team needs to really just piggyback off Zion, and R.J. Barrett needs to step up because I don't think that he played his best game against UCF. And R.J. Barrett needs to step up. And basically what UCF was doing, it was really funny.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you see a defender that is backed off of a shooter, it's usually a center or a guy that that just can't shoot. It's usually not your starting point guard in Trey Jones. There's literally like 3 or 4 feet of space that the defender was giving Trey Jones, baiting him to shoot the ball. Trey Jones went 1 for 8 from 3, right? So right there for Duke's next opponent in Virginia Tech, there's your game plan.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Step back off of Trey Jones and force Trey Jones to be your shooter. Don't let R.J. Barrett, don't let Zion Williams beat you. Say, put the ball in Trey Jones' hands because he's the one that's usually bringing the ball up the court, and force him to shoot, because if you do that, Duke is probably losing their next game. So I basically just gave you the blueprint of how to beat Duke, is force them to shoot jump shots and make Trey Jones shoot a lot of those jump shots.
No, I completely agree.
Now, that's obviously a lot easier said than done, and I'm not saying that is exactly what Virginia Tech is going to do, but we saw that UCF did the majority of that throughout the game, and they were obviously 1 point away from, a jump shot away from winning that game.
No, 100%. And you look at, I really like that you mentioned the free throw shooting, and overall shooting, because who's the team in the NBA that was supposed to, they had visions of grandeur, potentially a championship, that didn't shoot for 3 and didn't make their free throws? It's Los Angeles Lakers, guys. And that is legitimately one of the major reasons why they did not make the playoffs this year, because they were awful at free throws, and they didn't have shooters. And that's the way you win in basketball now. You have to make free throws, and you have to be able to shoot the 3. And you're right, Duke does not have that J.J. Redick this year.
They do not have a spot-up three-point shooter.
They don't have a guy.
It's supposed to be Cam Reddish, who was the number 3 overall recruit coming out of high school, and right now is currently the number 6th player to get drafted, and I have no idea why, because he has been so up and down. He's had a few good games, but for the most part, all he does is drive to the basket and get charges, and he misses threes. He is not a knockdown shooter.
He probably misses free throws too.
He's not a guy. Listen, I'm not trying to bash solely on Cam Reddish, but he has not lived up to the number 3 overall high school recruit that many people thought he was going to be. I'm just telling you right now, he has not lived up to that hype.
No, I don't. I mean, even it's like you look at even R.J. Barrett, when you're overshadowed by a guy like Zion Williamson, they're obviously going to look a little worse, but Zion just looked so much better than a guy like John Morant.
Here's my thing with that, and listen, I understand that these kids are 18 and 19 years old and they're teenagers and they're still developing and growing and trying to figure themselves out, but as a team, it seems like these guys all gel really well. It doesn't seem like there's any jealousy or a type of like, oh, I need the ball. You know what I mean? I don't feel that.
I don't see that either, yeah.
But in the back of R.J. Barrett's mind and in the back of Cam Reddish's mind, they have to know that Zion Williams is better than them. Zion Williams is the engine of this team, right? He's the heart and soul of this team. He's the reason why this team is currently in the Sweet 16. So if you can just swallow a little bit of your pride, take a small back seat to what Zion Williams is doing, and be the role player, be the Robin to the Zion Williams Batman, I think this team can flourish, right? And I'm not saying that these guys are being bullheaded or they're purposely trying to, be the superstar. But if they just relax and let the game come to them and play their own game, as opposed to trying to always make the highlight play and always trying to make the Zion play, I think this team would play a little bit better. But like I said, these guys are young. They're still trying to figure themselves out. And with all the superstar status, I mean, listen, CBS had a camera that was exclusively on Zion Williams last game.
Yeah.
No matter what. That cameraman's only job for the entire game, whether the play was going on or whether it was timeout and Zion Williams was sitting on the sidelines, was to have that camera focus on Zion. Like, that is how big of a superstar this guy is, right?
Yeah.
So, RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish, play your game, let the game come to you, and I guarantee they'll play better. But if they try to take the game over and play this one-on-one basketball that I've seen them both do at points of the season, that's not good for this team because this team cannot play one-on-one. Zion Williams can do it.
It's hard.
No one else can do it.
It's hard, Jared, because players have egos.
And that's what I'm saying.
Those
you have to be able to swallow
Yeah.
your pride. Coach K has to be able to say, listen, guys, like, we're going to play through Zion, okay?
Yeah.
We understand you're great. I understand you were the number 2 overall high school
But
recruit.
Zion's better.
But Zion,
Yeah.
it's a fact.
Yeah,
it's
no,
okay.
it is, 100%.
You're going to get drafted number 2 overall in the NBA if you're RJ Barrett. You're going to probably get drafted top 5 if you're Cam Reddish, okay? Like, you're going to make money. It's all right. Let's swallow your pride a little bit and let's win a national championship. You want to do this on your own, and they're going to get bounced next round. It's really that simple.
Yeah, no. If they play LSU and Michigan State the way they played that second game of the tournament against UCF, I would pick Michigan State or LSU just because they have great players too, and if they just focus on Zion and make those other players do what they're supposed to do, and those players don't do that, then that's how you have a winning game plan. That's how you win the games. All right, Jared. So we should move on from Duke.
Yeah.
And talk about who else has impressed you in this tournament so far. I'm talking about teams that are still in. So Sweet 16 teams that have impressed you that you think could really make a run at this thing.
Auburn.
That you did. Yeah, Auburn.
Auburn. Hands down.
I was going to say
Auburn
the
has
same
been,
one.
Listen,
Yeah, I was gonna say the
Auburn
same
beat Tennessee in the SEC championship game. I didn't even listen. I know Auburn has a basketball team. Charles Barkley came out of Auburn, so the team is established. But the way that this team shoots threes, the way that Bruce Pearl has this team hustling on every single play, I did not expect that from this Auburn team. I know they went like 26-6 for the regular season, so they were a well-deserving number 5 seed.
Team, yeah.
But for them to come out and literally spank Tennessee in the SEC championship game, and then kind of steamroll all their opponents so far in this tournament, this is a scary team that I would not want to play. Now, North Carolina is a very fast-paced team. They like to get up and down. They can also shoot, so I think they are a team it's well-matched against Auburn. But Auburn, this out of all the games that are left, this is the one team I would not. The one team that I would not want to play if I was North Carolina. I'd rather play Duke right now than Auburn.
No, I would too.
The way that Auburn can shoot threes, the way that they disrupt things from the defensive side of the ball, it's almost like created chaos. Auburn purposely wants to press you full court, and then they'll drop back, and they want to create chaos so they can get out and run on the open court and then shoot a three. That's kind of what they like to do. So it's chaotic, but for some reason it works for them, and it's been very, very successful. So if I'm North Carolina, watch out for the upset. I obviously picked North Carolina because I have North Carolina in the championship game against Duke, but I will not be surprised in the slightest if Auburn pulls out this win.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Oregon. I mean, how could you not be? 12th seed. They essentially only got in because they won the Pac-12 tournament. And they go and they whoop on Wisconsin. They whoop on UCI. And now they're going to play number 1 Virginia in Louisville, Kentucky, which is obviously going to be more of a home game for Virginia. So Oregon, man, defensively, this team is legit. I mean, the how hard these guys played against a team like UCI, who was the 13 seed Cinderella team. Dude, if they even play half of how they played against UCI or against Wisconsin, I think they can beat Virginia easy. Virginia, obviously, we can make jokes about Virginia because at a point they were down by like 10 again to a 16 seed. They turned it around. They won by 15. They struggled a bit and didn't score as much against Oklahoma, too, who wasn't necessarily a world-beating defense. But Virginia's a good team. I just think this Oregon team is hot at the right moment. And I remember my old baseball coach used to say this. He said, it doesn't matter who was the best during the regular season. It's about who gets hot at the end. And right now, Oregon is one of those teams that has gotten hot at the end. They've impressed me so far. So the team that's impressed me is Oregon. I think they can beat Virginia. I wouldn't predict it, but I think they can beat Virginia.
Listen, Oregon averages 4.5 blocks a game and almost 8 steals a game.
Oh, one of the players, I mean, they had a player, I cannot remember his name. I mean, you probably could get his name up there if you just list off some players, but there's a dude that can block shots almost at will for Oregon. And he did it against UCI. He did it against Wisconsin. I watched both the games, and he just I think he was averaging 3 blocks a game during the season or something like that. So Oregon's a very good team, and one of the reasons that I really like the fact that you have some of the top seeds in this bracket right now is that we're gonna get some really good basketball games. Number one, but you really don't know what's gonna happen, right? We're talking about Virginia Tech could beat Duke, right? Because Duke looks, Oregon could beat Virginia. Auburn could beat UNC. Florida State probably could beat Gonzaga. So these teams, it's going to be really entertaining. And if you look down the bracket, it's 1-4, 3 versus 2, 1-4, 3 versus 2, 3 versus 2, 1 versus 5,
right,
3 versus 2, and 1 versus 12.
Evenly matched.
Yeah. So
for the most part,
it is extremely going to be entertaining. Now, real quick, I want to get to teams that have disappointed, teams that have kind of scratched and clawed their way to the Sweet 16, maybe based on their talent. I don't know if you want to say Duke or not with this one, but what are some teams that you thought highly of that now in the Sweet 16 you're going they have no chance of getting to the they have no chance? I have one team for sure. You want me to say my one team?
Yeah, you take it.
Tennessee.
Really?
Tennessee they struggled mightily against 15 seed Colgate, who I thought was a toothpaste company. And
it actually is.
And they went to OT versus Iowa after having a 25-point lead. So I don't know what's going on with them, but they play Purdue, who beat Old Dominion in the first round and demolished the defending champion Villanova in the second round. I don't think Tennessee has any chance at winning this next game.
Really?
And it at worst, they have no chance of beating Oregon and Virginia in the next round. I have them in the Final Four, but I do not think they'll make the Final Four again. Tennessee has completely disappointed me, and maybe they'll change it up, and maybe they get into that game, and they play in Louisville, Kentucky as well, which is essentially a home game. That is right there. But they just have disappointed me. I don't know what's going on with them.
Yeah, really quickly, the Oregon player, his name is Ball.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
yeah, he's the one that averages like 4 blocks a game. He's kind of that defensive-minded guy for that Oregon team. So I just wanted to say that really quick.
No problem.
The team that I can see that's, I mean, listen, they moved on to the Sweet 16, but the team that has probably a good chance of maybe getting upset or losing is Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And it's the way that they played against Wofford in the second round, where Wofford.
Yeah, I didn't see this game. Did you watch this game?
I did. Okay, now listen, Wofford is like pretty much exclusively a 3-point shooting team. They have like 2 or 3 players on that team that can not only create their own shot, but they're shooting like fadeaway threes, and they make a good majority of them. I mean, these guys were legit. They only scored 55 points, and I don't have the stats up with me right now, but the majority of their points came from 3.
Well, you know what else with this game too, and I'm going to agree with you on Kentucky. So the final score was 62-56. Their top 3-point shooter was 0 for 12.
Yeah.
He makes 3 of those threes, guys, or makes 2 threes in a free throw, and Wofford wins.
Right.
So Kentucky got lucky. You're right.
They did. And for Kentucky going up against the Houston team, who was a number 3 seed, but I don't think many people, unless you follow Houston or unless you're from the Houston area. Corey Davis Jr. is a very underrated player, and like I said, unless you really know Houston, you probably don't really know of him. He's not the Zion Williams or the R.J. Barrett that gets the highlights and that gets talked about all the time. Corey Davis Jr. is averaging close to over 23 points a game in this tournament. The kid is dynamite. Now, he's a guard, and he's a smaller guard, but he creates his own shot. He gets his teammates involved. This Houston team is legit, and I think they've got a chip on their shoulder after losing their conference championship game to Cincinnati, and then Cincinnati got bounced. Yeah. So I think Houston is saying, we're a lot better than that, and they've come out and they've proved it so far. This is another game where I won't be surprised, just like if Auburn beats North Carolina, if Houston comes out and plays a great game and beats a Kentucky team, that I don't think Kentucky is just that great. Listen, they have good talent, because it's Kentucky, they will always be, in the running and probably have a good shot as far as the standing or the rankings go. But I would actually, if we could redo this bracket and pick just from the Sweet 16, I'd pick Houston.
You can, right?
You can.
Yeah, there actually is a thing on ESPN where you can do a Sweet 16 bracket.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I might have to do that because I would pick Houston, and I'd probably pick Auburn.
In the break, I'll show you.
Okay.
It's actually one of the cool things that you can. leading up to this podcast, one of the ways I was researching and one of the ways I want to talk about these teams is I did another bracket. So I and you look at who's going to play who. No, I think Houston's going to win that game too. I think Houston will upset Kentucky and they'll play UNC. But I also could see Auburn upsetting UNC, and we have an Auburn-Houston game, which nobody would have expected. So, you know, yeah, no. But Kentucky and Tennessee, they both have disappointed a little bit, and it should be interesting to see if they can survive somehow this next weekend and possibly still get to the Final Four. I obviously Kentucky will have to go through UNC or Auburn if they win, which I don't think will happen regardless. But you know, we'll just have to see. So now let's actually predict our Final Four, because we did this last week, and we do have enough time in the segment. So give me your Final Four teams and maybe an adjustment to the national championship if you want to make it, because we're about adjustments. We're not going to sit here and just go, this team's going to win. No, we're talking about Duke possibly being a sketchy team. So, Jared, what is your Final Four? What do you think happens here?
So my Final Four, my adjusted Final Four, and I'm glad you said that. We do need to preface.
Yeah, I'm definitely changing mine too.
I still have Duke coming out of the East. I think Duke will beat Virginia Tech. Now, let's remember, Duke and Virginia Tech are both in the ACC, so they're very familiar with each other. For giving Cam Reddish a lot of slack in this podcast so far. Earlier in the season, when Duke was at Virginia Tech, Cam Reddish hit a game-winning 3 against that team. So, if that helps, give him a little mojo going into this, that's fantastic.
Well, they also the reason that game was close was I believe that was the game right after Zion got injured against UNC.
Well. Yeah. But yeah, I'm picking Duke to beat Virginia Tech and advance as well. So I'm picking Duke out of the East. Duke would also have to beat the winner of LSU and Michigan State, which I think they will, but that will also be another tough game. Coming out of the West, I have Michigan, and I think Michigan will beat Texas Tech, and then I think they will beat the winner of Gonzaga and Florida State. Listen, Gonzaga, I'm not a huge fan of that team. I understand that for the past couple years, they've been a top seed, and especially this year being a number 1 seed, but I think Florida State can upset Gonzaga, and I think you mentioned that earlier, but out of the East, I do have Michigan, so it would be a Duke and Michigan Final Four out of the East and the West. And then coming out of the South, I originally had Virginia, and I'm going to stick with Virginia. That is I'm sticking.
Didn't sound too confident with that.
No,
though.
I did, because for a second I do have one adjustment to make, but it's actually in the Midwest. So I still have Virginia coming out. I think they can beat either Purdue or Tennessee, and really, it's because of Virginia's defense. Like, there are nights when they can, come out and only score 50 points, but guess what? They'll only give up 45. Their defense they play man-to-man defense the entire game. They don't switch from that. They don't play any type of zone. They play hard man-to-man defense, and that's what they hang their hats on. So I'm still picking Virginia. And then coming out of the Midwest, this is where I'm going to change things up. I have Auburn. I'm jumping on the Auburn bandwagon.
On the Charles Barkley bandwagon
The way that they shoot the three, and in today's basketball, where it's about shooting threes and about fast breaks, and just like I said, the chaotic style that this team plays with, right now they're hot, and I'm not going against them. So I'm sorry, North Carolina, you're getting upset, and the winner of Houston and Kentucky, I think they're getting upset as well. It would be an upset either way, because Auburn's the number 5 seed. And then Houston's number 3, or Kentucky's number 2. I have Auburn actually playing Duke.
I mean, if you're going to have in the national championship?
In the national
championship.
Wow.
You're going Bruce Pearl versus Coach K in the national. I like it. I like that you changed up a lot there because I think some of us could probably
So originally I had North Carolina against Duke.
Oh, yeah, so we won't so you actually said your national championship, but it's I'll say mine too.
Okay.
We didn't have to say that just because the national championship.
Sorry, I got excited.
It's fine.
I got excited. I got ahead of myself.
And then you still have Duke winning, you said?
I'm staying.
It doesn't matter. We don't need to talk about
as long as Zion is on the court, I'm not going against Duke.
But if Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett are just on the court,
whole different story.
Exactly.
Whole different story.
So, all right. So I do definitely have some changes for mine. Yeah, mine are all over the place. I'll start. I actually still have Duke and Michigan State in the Elite Eight here. I just think you have 2 legendary coaches versus 2 kind of inexperienced coaches. I think they'll find ways to win, and I do actually believe that Duke will beat Michigan State and still get in. I kind of agree with you. With Zion on the court and without him in foul trouble, it's going to be hard to beat them, especially what happened last game. I feel like I would almost be afraid to play Virginia if I'm Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech can beat them, and maybe that the overexcitement from Duke could screw them in the end. But I'm still going to go with Duke, and I have them going to the Final Four out of the East region. In the West, and this is they call the Jared Smith region, because Jared Smith will be at the finale of this region.
Yes, sir.
At the Honda
Saturday,
Center.
Elite Eight.
So
Let's go.
we got Gonzaga versus Florida State and Texas Tech versus Michigan. I have Texas Tech upsetting Michigan, if you want to call that an upset.
Really?
I've been disappointed by Michigan. I had them losing in the second round. I still believe that they will lose only because they're playing Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is a great team. I think they're very underrated and they're well coached. And I personally believe they were the best team in the Big 12 the whole season. And look at that. They're the only team left out of the Big 12. So I think you got Texas Tech going to upset Michigan. They're going to shock the world. They're going to get to the finale of Honda Center or of the Western thing. And I have Gonzaga. Gonzaga will find a way to get past Florida State. Florida State has a great defense.
A lot of length.
I agree, and we talked about this. I just think Gonzaga, after watching them, they'll get through this game. But I do have Texas Tech beating them and getting to the Final Four.
The Red Raiders?
Yes, Jared. The Big 12 getting to the Final Four.
Okay.
I've been high on this team all season, and I've actually, this is the only Big 12 team I've actually gone to actually look and watch their games. And so maybe that's where the biased perspective comes on them. But I wasn't wrong. They're the only Big 12 team left. So I'm gonna get them into the Final Four against Duke. For the Southern region, I have Oregon upsetting Virginia. I'm gonna go for it. I think it's too close of a game, and I'm gonna give it to the other team. Oregon, just like I said, I think they're actually one or two of the hottest teams in the tournament right now. And the other hot team is Purdue. And so I have Purdue beating Tennessee. Like I mentioned, I just tore Tennessee down a second ago. I got to go with Purdue, but I do have Purdue winning and getting to the Final Four because Purdue has smacked their opponents so far in this tournament. And I think they're finding a way, even without their best player, I believe, to get here. And then this is actually the best one for me. This part of the bracket, the Midwest. You have North Carolina versus Auburn, which I would have thought North Carolina 100%. Would just get to the Elite Eight easy. That's not for sure yet, but I still have them getting to the Elite Eight.
Okay.
But when you say Auburn can beat them, I wouldn't. Like, this is a game I wouldn't bet on because I'm going to go with UNC because they haven't disappointed me in this tournament yet, and why would I go against them because they're playing a better team? I think they'll find a way to win. I think they have great players, and if they could beat Duke twice, even without Zion, and almost beat them with Zion, I think they can find a way to beat Auburn. And then, you mentioned some good things about Kentucky, so I'm going to go with Houston in this next game. And I got Houston playing North Carolina, but North Carolina winning and getting to the Final Four. My finale is still Duke, North Carolina.
Okay. And
I still have North Carolina winning the national championship. So I got to go with them. They haven't disappointed me yet, so I'm not going to go against them. But Duke will find a way. But maybe I'll adjust the score of the finale a little bit and give North Carolina maybe a couple extra points on that win, besides one like I originally had. So that's mine. We'll reevaluate this next week and give you our Final Four and national championship picks and discuss what happened in these 8 games, or actually 12 games. But for now, Jared, you have Auburn and North Carolina. Or, no, Auburn and Duke.
Auburn and Duke.
And Duke being the champion. And North Carolina and Duke is for me. And I have North Carolina still as a champion. So
2 ACC teams.
Go Kenny Smith. All right, we're going to break. We're going to come back with Do You Care? Talk about all the stuff we haven't talked about. And then you don't want to miss it. We're doing our MLB predictions segment at the end of the show. I believe Alex Silva is going to join us for that one too.
Try to join in
via satellite or however we can get him. So we're predicting the entire MLB season, and you won't want to miss who we pick for the playoffs because I think we're going to think a lot differently on some of these teams. So we're going to break on Facebook Live and on OC Rock Radio. This is the Cover 2 podcast.
Well, this is big news in the world of mixed martial arts and the UFC. Arguably the biggest name associated with the organisation, Conor McGregor, has announced his MMA retirement. Taking to Twitter on Tuesday, he announced, "Hey guys, quick announcement. I've decided to retire from the sport formerly known as mixed martial arts today. I wish my old colleagues well going forward in competition. I now join my former partners on this venture already in retirement." Proper pina colada.
So new Cardinals coach Cliff Kingsbury is already making changes in Arizona. Kingsbury said yesterday that he'll allow cell phone breaks every 20 to 30 minutes during team meetings. He implemented this at Texas Tech, adding, quote, "You know, they need to get that social media fixed, so we'll let them hop over there and then get back in the meeting and refocus." That is the world we live in, guys.
Lakers guard Lonzo Ball told ESPN that he has cut ties with the Big Baller Brand co-founder Alan Foster over concerns about Foster's criminal past and because Foster hasn't adequately accounted for the whereabouts of roughly $1.5 million. Now, Foster has been a friend of Lonzo's father, Lavar, for almost a decade and owns 16.3% of the Big Baller Brand. Lonzo owns 51% of Big Baller Brand. On Saturday night, Lonzo posted an Instagram picture with the slogan, "It's only a crazy dream until you do it," where the caption reads, "Moving on to bigger and better, hashtag my own man."
We are back here on the Cover 2 podcast. Once again, I'm Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And Jared Smith, what time is it right now?
What time is it, Nick Nenad?
It actually is time for Do You Care? Apologize for the clap. That was probably really loud for the mic. So I apologize for that. But it is time for Do You Care? And I get excited sometimes, Jared. Okay, so you can't...
It's all good, man. I don't blame you.
You can't put me down, all right? No,
do your thing, brother.
All right, so it's Do You Care? If you don't know how we play this game, we ask each other a couple of rapid fire questions. We answer them to the best of our ability, whether we care or not. So some of them we just don't care, but we will try to extend on them because they are important stories usually. So we'll get into it. Jared, do you care that Ichiro Suzuki is officially retired from baseball?
I do care, and this is obviously an iconic player, not only with his days playing in Major League Baseball, but with his first 9 seasons playing in Japan. I think a lot of people do forget that. He had a I believe it was a 20-plus year professional career.
Dude, so long.
With Major League Baseball and with playing professionally in Japan. He amassed 4,000 hits, 4,367 hits. So just simply amazing. I mean, and they did start with the Mariners, and then he kind of went to a few different teams, and then he ended up coming back to the Mariners kind of full circle. So it was kind of fitting that he was able to play his last game in Japan and retire right after that. It was pretty cool. The other 8 positional players went off into the dugout and left Ichiro on the field by himself for basically a standing ovation and a round of applause. So that was kind of cool to see. But I don't believe Ichiro is actually going away. I think he's going to stay involved with the Mariners as far as I'm concerned in some type of front office role or capacity. I mean, who knows? He could be a manager one day. But as far as his playing career goes, he's definitely retiring. A for sure first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. But yes, I do care that Ichiro is retiring. One of the iconic faces of baseball will be missed. Nick, do you care, sticking with baseball, that more MLB stars got $100 million plus extensions with their teams this past week?
Yes, because this is a growing good trend in baseball. This is happening right now. Just to list a couple, Jacob deGrom, Cy Young winner, signs 5-year extension with the Mets, worth $137 million. Blake Snell, AL Cy Young winner, 5 years, $50 million extension, but this is due to the fact that he's very young and it's taking up his years of eligibility, much like Alex Bregman, where he's going to get paid a lot more than he would have in that period of time, and then he can re-up if he wants or become a free agent having already made $50 million. Chris Sale, 5-year extension worth $145 million. Paul Goldschmidt, 5-year extension with the Cardinals, $130 million. And a couple other ones that were below the $100 million rank, but a lot in per year statistics. Verlander, 2 years, $66 million extension. That's $33 million a year extension with the Astros for 2 more years. And then my favorite of all of them was Kyle Hendricks getting a 5-year extension with the possibility of making $80 million. The reason I care about this is because he is a former Capo Valley baseball player. He played at my alumni, and I actually was able to hang out with him, pick his brain about some stuff, and
awesome.
I got to play catch with him twice.
Nice.
Back at Capo, so he's cool. I believe he's probably one of the few people from my high school that ever make $80 million potentially too. So that's really cool. And the first player from an outstanding baseball program as far as my high school goes to really, really finally get their money and stuff like that. We all remember Tyler Matzik, unfortunately, has not ever made it in the MLB, but Kyle Hendricks gets his due, and it was worth it. He won the World Series with the Cubs. And then also, here's a really interesting one, too. Chicago White Sox extended their top prospect, Eloy Jimenez, for 6 years, $43 million. He's never stepped foot in the MLB. Now, he made the opening day roster, so he will. But his deal can be made up to $77 million, and he's never played an MLB game. I knew you'd like that one, Jared.
What?
So that's an interesting one, too, that I wanted to mention as far as the extensions. But I took in a lot of time with my segment, but I really like the way the MLB's done it this offseason. I know we complain and stuff like that, but there's a lot of guys signing with teams like forever or extending with teams and not just going into the free agency and doing kind of what the basketball players do or even what some of the NFL players do with where they go into free agency or guys like Antonio Brown asked to be traded. It's just not happening in the MLB. And I also heard a good story about how the fact that Damian Lillard said he's probably not going to leave the Portland Trailblazers. Let's get the trends in sports to stick that way instead of going the other way where we create these super teams or free agents or just wanting to leave their teams or calling out their teams. I really like the way the last month has gone in baseball and with this Damian Lillard news that he's sticking with. I really do like that. All right, Jared, speaking of a player not sticking with a specific brand, Jared, do you care that Lonzo Ball has covered up his triple B tattoo on his arm?
Yes. This looks like the fall of the big baller brand. Yeah. I am very happy. Listen, here's the thing.
Explain what this means.
So, in all seriousness, Lonzo Ball basically found out, and come to find out, this happened all back in October, where Lonzo Ball's basically his financial manager, one of his financial managers, came to him and said, "Hey, man, there's like $1.5 million missing and not accounted for." And one of the co-founders of the Big Baller brand was essentially, and also a very close family friend of the Ball family, is supposedly the man who is responsible for this $1.5 million being lost, quote unquote. So with Lonzo Ball being very skeptical and thinking that this man took that money, Lonzo has basically decided to step away from Big Baller brand and disassociate himself with that, along with his brothers. And I think this is a lot more than just stepping away from an organization or an entity, or this is a lot more than just about $1.5 million. I think this is about Lonzo finally stepping in to his own shoes, and he supposedly, him and both of his brothers have supposedly taken all of their pictures of their dad down on Instagram. They have deleted. They don't follow Big Baller brand anymore. So I think this is kind of like a coming of age moment, like becoming an adult. You know what I mean?
Seriously?
Stepping out into their own and doing their own thing. Lonzo Ball did post something that looked to be related to like a Nike type of a slogan.
I saw that, yeah.
So, there's rumors that he could be talking with Nike. Obviously, he's a teammate of LeBron James who's with Nike. So, there's a potential pairing there. But more than anything, more than the money, more than actually Big Baller brand, I think this is about Lonzo stepping away and trying to become his own man and not just a shadow of what his dad has portrayed for the majority of Lonzo Ball's career. So, good for you, Lonzo, finally stepping away, and hopefully that they can have a good relationship with their dad, because I'm not saying that they need to break up the family. That's not what I'm saying at all. But from a professional and basketball standpoint, Lonzo needs to be his own man.
Well, especially if your business manager's stealing your money.
Right.
I mean, and this is like a family friend of their dad's. If my dad did something like that to me, I would definitely not be associated with him with anything, and I definitely would hurt our relationship too. So I totally understand this is not just some shoot piece on Lavar and Big Baller Brand. Someone was stealing money in that organization, and that is a very good reason to leave that brand. So if anything, that was, that's what that is.
Exactly. So, Nick, do you care that the NFL draft is less than 1 month away?
Yes, I do, Jared. How could I not care about this? I mean, my team has the number 1 pick, right? It's very interesting. And the closer we get to the NFL draft, the more likely something crazy is going to happen with the number 1 pick. So I'm getting a lot more excited. I mean, we were just talking about how sports are kind of ramping up right now, specifically tomorrow, Thursday. You have the beginning of the MLB season, and we already saw that there's at least 5 games on national TV, and of course we have the Angels as well that we can watch. So that's 6 baseball games, and then you have 4 Sweet 16 games. It's starting to get into that good time in the sports world, and that's why we didn't have a problem coming up with stuff for this podcast today, because we have so much to talk about. But with the NFL draft coming up, it just means more news, more stuff to pay attention to, and more fun if you have the number 1 pick like my team does. It sucks when the season's going on and you end up with the number 1 pick, but oh man, when draft time comes around,
it's the best thing in the world.
It's the best thing in the world. Yeah, and then where I'm already planning parties for the NFL draft and stuff like that, because us Cardinals fans got to get together. us 13 of us that still exist, and we have to get together and root on whoever we pick number 1 pick, or if we trade away, it's even more entertaining. See what we get for draft picks. Jared, do you care? Speaking of the team with the number 1 pick, that worked out perfectly. Do you care that Cliff Kingsbury is allowing cell phone breaks for Cardinals players?
Yeah, I do care. Listen, I understand the world that we live in now with social media, and everyone has a cell phone, obviously a smartphone, more than likely. And Cliff Kingsbury did this while he was the head coach at Texas Tech. Let's not forget he was there for 6+ years. And he said that, instead of having a 2-hour meeting where his players would lose focus after about 20 or 30 minutes, he would literally break up the meeting. So they'd have a meeting for 30 minutes, and then he would give them a 10-15 minute break to literally go and be on their phones just do whatever.
Cardinals players better not need to do this. That's
right?
So disappointing.
And then come back and have another 30 minutes to just kind of break things up. So I guess that works for some people. Here's the issue that I have with this. Cliff Kingsbury, you're not in college football anymore. Yeah. This is the NFL. These guys get paid to do this. This is their one singular job. Like in college, number 1, you have a lot of 19, 20-year-old kids who are probably thinking about their girlfriend, or they obviously have schoolwork to do. There's a lot of other things going on. And the NFL, these are this players' sole job, sole purpose. They should be 1,000% focused on the meeting and whatever task is currently at hand. So the fact that Kingsbury already is implementing this, and he probably hasn't had a meeting with his full team yet because his team is not put together. I think this one's just a little weird. I don't know if he's underestimating this team or underestimating these players. Like I said, I get that everyone wants to be on social media and check their social media pages and stuff like that, but you're telling me that these players can't sit in a meeting for an hour and be focused? So I don't like this idea. I think it's already setting kind of a bad precedence and kind of a bad way of doing things. Now, listen, I'm sure the players are going to like it. I mean, hey, the meetings might be a little bit shorter, but it's come on, man. You're a professional now, whether you're a rookie coming into the league or you're Larry Fitzgerald who's been in the league for 16, 17 years. It's focus in a meeting for an hour or an hour and a half.
Yeah, I agree.
And then go check your phone afterwards. It's a little weird, a little bizarre for me. So I'm not a big fan of it. Nick, last question for you, and I think I have an idea of where you're going. Do you care that Conor McGregor, is retiring from the MMA?
I do care. Although me and some other people might expect this to be kind of a front, a Brett Favre type of retirement.
Really? Why would you say that?
Well, first of all, he retired in 2016, and clearly he fought in 2018. This past 2018, and his opponent jumped in the stands. But it just it comes at a little interesting time for him because it came out the day after he retired that he's involved in a sexual assault case in Ireland. So maybe this was a way to try to not get out of that, but
not get suspended.
Take the news of that and put it to the exactly. But so McGregor announces retirement. I don't know a lot about the sexual assault case thing, so I'm going to go with the retirement thing. If he does retire, in my opinion, he's top 3 MMA fighter of all time. As far as entertaining, wins, he has the best knockout I've ever seen of Jose Aldo in the first 20 so seconds of a fight that had been promoted for almost a year. McGregor obviously was so popular and so famous, he legitimately got a boxing match with the best boxer of all. The guy is entertaining through and through. I hope he doesn't retire because I still think there are 1 or 2 fights out there for him that he still would enjoy fighting for and would really entertain the UFC fans and stuff, and even fans like you, Jared, who don't follow the product as much. I think you'd still watch a Conor McGregor, maybe Khabib
all
fight.
day.
Exactly.
All day.
So
it's entertainment.
Exactly. So I hope he doesn't retire. If this, in fact, is a legitimate retirement, he does have a whiskey business. This is what I was mentioning earlier when I was talking about Gronk. He has a whiskey business that is going to make him money for the rest of his life. But he already made $100 million on the boxing match with Floyd Mayweather, too. So he's set for life. He has a kid. It seems like he has a good wife or girlfriend. They don't know if they're married or not. So good for him if he's retired. Obviously, if the sexual assault thing is true, that's terrible, and we'll probably mention that as well on this podcast. But I don't know about that. It's just an investigation. We're not going to come out here and speculate anything that's wrong, especially with certain football players and the Cowboys that were wrongly accused. We're not going to sit here and
Let's not get into that.
We're not going to sit here and just go ahead and blame Conor McGregor. But one of the best MMA fighters of all time, top 3 for sure if he is retiring. So good luck in your retirement, Conor McGregor. All right, we're going to break. Coming up next, you don't want to miss this. We're doing our MLB predictions. We're telling you who's going to win every division, who's going to make the playoffs, who our 2 World Series teams are, who's going to make the World Series, and then some of the awards if we have time. So you don't want to miss that. This is the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio and Facebook Live.
From the top on down, here comes a 1-2 pitch. Red Sox win the World Series. 5-1 the final tonight. And the best team in baseball wins it all in 2018.
Cole's got me worked up, man. Cole, the whole day. Hey, you were ready for this speech? I'm happy, obviously. First of all, I'd like to thank Artie and Carol Moreno, Billy Epter, John Carpino. Faith and commitment to me. It's been a long last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We got it done. My wife, family. I love you guys. Thanks for all the support. Whew. I'm losing it.
We're here live on OC Rock Radio and Facebook Live. This is the Cover 2 podcast. Nick Nedad and I are on our final segment of the show. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sticking with us. And we're going to finish off today's show with breaking down Major League Baseball rankings and predictions, who we think will win the division and go into the playoffs and eventually win the World Series. We know that's a long ways away, but seeing as baseball officially gets started tomorrow, we need to give our predictions so you know who will win. We have Alex Silva, who will be commenting a lot, so check the feed and you will get his advice as well.
And we'll mention it too.
Yes, along with ours. We know that Nick Nedad here is the baseball guru, and I want to get a lot of Alex Silva's advice. So
yes.
Let's jump it off right away, guys, and I want to get started. Let's start with the NL and then go with the AL. I want to finish with the AL West, since that's kind of we'll do the NL and the AL West last.
That's totally fair.
Let's start with the NL East, and that's obviously the Braves, the Marlins,
Crazy
the Mets,
division.
Phillies, and the Nationals. Obviously, in my opinion, the biggest news coming out of this division is the fact that Bryce Harper leaves the Nationals, stays within the division, and signs a 13-year, $330 million contract with the Philadelphia Phillies. So, Nick, before I actually get your prediction on who you think wins the division, does this propel the Phillies above the Nationals? And are the Phillies now the favorites in this division?
No. Actually, the answer is no for both of those questions. Yeah, really? The Phillies are still a young team. They're great. I'm going to talk about Harper in a second, a little later in the segment when we talk about certain awards and stuff like that. Okay. But the Atlanta Braves were a playoff team last season. All they're going to do is get better. They added depth. They didn't really lose anybody. And I just think their pitching staff is going to get better and better as they go. The Washington Nationals essentially added the likes of Patrick Corbin, who's a very solid number 2, number 3 pitcher for Washington. Really a number 2 that's forced to be number 3 because they have Strasburg and Scherzer. They improved. They added Brian Dozier. They added Kurt Suzuki at catcher. So they kind of essentially made up for the Harper loss with 3 very solid players, including a very good starting pitcher. So my thing is starting pitching can get you to the playoffs. I don't necessarily know if it can win you a World Series, but it definitely can get you a playoff. So I'm going to pick the team with the better starting pitching, and that's the Washington Nationals. Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, and Patrick Corbin.
Are you kidding me?
Dude, it's nasty. It is absolutely nasty. If Corbin can stay healthy, that is potentially the best rotation in baseball. Nationals aren't winning the division, but they're better than the Phillies. I got the Braves winning this division. I think the Braves are the best team. It's not the toughest division to pick, which is amazing because there's 4 legitimate playoff contenders in here. But I just think the Braves, they won the division last year. They have a very, very good player in Freddie Freeman that leads this team. And they also have rookies and young players like Ronald Acuna Jr., Ozzie Albies. They still have a good farm system. And they also added Josh Donaldson. If Josh Donaldson goes back to anywhere, the player that he used to be, this team is going to be dangerous and potentially, the best team in the National League.
Yeah, no. So I have the Braves winning this division as well, and I think Josh Donaldson will be a big part of that. But my question is, do you think he'll get back to that elite all-star status? Because if he does, pairing with Ronald Acuna Jr., I think this team from a hitting standpoint, and the fact in that ballpark, isn't it? That's a hitter's ballpark.
For the new ones that have been built, that one's relatively hitter friendly. Yeah, because the one thing Donaldson didn't have the last couple of years, and he was injured and he had injuries and stuff like that, was he didn't have anybody backing him up. Justin Smoke was a great player, but Justin Smoke ain't Freddie Freeman, and he's not Ronald Acuna Jr., he's not Ozzie Albies. Josh Donaldson stuck in the middle of this lineup, I think will get back to being an all-star. I don't think he's going to be the superstar 40 home run, giant that he was in Toronto. But I think he can be a very good player. And those 4 guys in that lineup, if they all stay healthy, I just said this about the Nationals, could be the best, 4 guys in a lineup together.
Well, do you think that helps Donaldson because he doesn't have to be the lone superstar?
Exactly.
It's all right, dude, you don't have to go out and hit 40, 50 home runs. You can 110%. You can be a role player.
If he goes, let's say their lineup is Albies leading off, Acuna Jr. batting second, or maybe you have Acuna Jr. batting first, Albies batting second, Donaldson batting third, and Freddie Freeman batting fourth. You could also put Donaldson second, so there's as long as you stick Donaldson in front of Freddie Freeman, he'll have a better year as long as he doesn't get injured. 100%. Because Freddie Freeman is a consistent 300 hitter and can get to 30 home runs. So this Braves team is really, really good, and I think they're going to win the division.
Quickly, we have I'm just going to start calling him Silva.
Yes,
people know his name by now. It's Alex Silva.
Yeah.
Silva is arguing that the Phillies have a better balance of youth, and he's actually picking the Phillies to win the division. He thinks the Braves can get in as a wild card.
Okay, that's fair. I mean,
yeah.
And you said, Inciarte, yeah. So they also have another leadoff hitter, and they have Nick Markakis. That lineup is nasty.
Yeah.
That lineup is ridiculous.
Right.
So yeah, I think the Nationals also will be a wild card team at the NL East too. So,
really? So you think 3 teams from that division?
No, I have only 2. I have another wild card team I'll mention later.
Okay.
Yeah, I do not think the Phillies are making the playoffs unless...
You don't even think they're making the playoffs?
Nope.
Okay.
It's tough. Dude, the National League, if they were in the American League, they would probably make it. It's like the Eastern Conference. But National League, it's hard. So I have to disagree with Silver here. And I don't even think the Phillies are making the playoffs. So we'll see.
Wow.
We'll see what happens there. Bryce is good. but Bryce has never been the type of guy to get you any further than you possibly can, right? I mentioned his playoff stats. Maybe they can get to the playoffs. I don't have a lot of trust in Bryce, at least in his first year. Once they start getting acclimated more, add some, even more starting pitching pieces, I think they'll be better.
Okay, yeah. Let's move on to, let's do the, do you want to do the AL East or the NL Central? Do you want to stick with the East?
Let's do the AL East.
Let's stick with the East?
Yeah,
Let's go to the East. This is Silva's division.
This is the Silva division.
With the Yankees, so I think we already know where he's going with this.
Yeah.
So listen, there are, in my opinion,
What's your take on this? Yeah.
There are two teams in this division that have a legit opportunity, and it's not very hard to see. It's the old rivalry of the Red Sox and the Yankees. Now, obviously, the Red Sox coming off that World Series championship, but guess what? Their bullpen, I think, will be worse than it was last year. I think it took some hits
100%
as far as the players that they lost. The Yankees, I think, have added a lot of good depth, and if I was a betting man right now, I would actually pick the Yankees to win the division with the Red Sox being the wild card. You're welcome, Alex. I think, listen, the fact that the Yankees didn't go out and make a huge splash, right? They didn't get Machado. They didn't get Harper. And not that I'm going to say overspend, but they weren't going to sit here and give in to those players' demands. They re-signed Aaron Hicks. You still have, listen, I think they have one of the best outfields. When you have Giancarlo Stanton and when you have Judge, I think those two guys, I think Stanton being in his second year in New York, getting a little more acclimated. I know he went through stretches last year where he looked god-awful. He was getting booed. I mean, listen, we know the strikeouts are always going to be there for Stanton, but I think the fact that he can kind of gel a little bit more and be a little more comfortable and he understands what this New York market and media is about, I think that will help him settle in. So for that, the one problem or the one kind of caveat I do have is Luis Severino. And the fact that he's not going to be there for opening day.
Jared, you're on top of it right now.
A little bit. And I have to because listen, I'm talking with you two. Well, obviously you, and I know Alex Silva's listening right now. So the fact that Luis Severino is going to be out, at least for the beginning, the first few weeks. I'm not sure exactly when he's coming back. I need to do a little more research on that. But I think that's a big loss for this team. Now, the fact that it's the beginning of the year and it's only for hopefully a shorter period of time, I think that's something that this team can overcome. If he was out for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months or something like that, then I might have to switch my pick. But if this is just a shorter term injury and he's able to come back within a month or so, I'm gonna, and he can stay healthy for the rest of the year. I think he's a huge part of this team's success. I'm going to give it to the Yankees.
Yeah, but they added James Paxton, too, to be a number one, an interim number one pitcher, too. Because he was the number one in Seattle for the last couple of years, too. So, good to have a guy on that roster. Yeah, no, I think the Yankees are the best team in baseball.
In baseball?
In baseball. I highlighted them and uppercased the entire name of the New York Yankees. I think they will win over 100 games. I think they will have the best record in the MLB. I'll get to my playoff predictions a little later, but... yeah, no, New York's definitely winning the. They can definitely get the best record. They definitely make the playoffs. I do believe the Red Sox will make the wild card, but actually it's the second wild card. I think they're going to struggle to get in. They lost their best 2 bullpen pieces, literally their best 2 players in the bullpen, and baseball's about bullpen right now. It's about pitching. So, you can hit all the home runs you want, but if you don't have a bullpen to save the game at the end, you can't do anything. And the Red Sox are relying on Matt Barnes. Or pick anybody else. I actually don't know. So I think they're in a lot of trouble, but I still think they'll make the playoffs. They won the World Series last year. They have great hitting.
They have too much talent to
not make the playoffs.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the playoffs, we saw how well this bullpen carried them. Yeah. That is where they could potentially struggle, unless you see around the All-Star break where they kind of make some trades. But as of right now, I don't trust that bullpen.
No, exactly. I think Alex Silva, you at least said that you didn't think the Red Sox were going to make the playoffs. So that's somewhere where we both disagree.
He's also a Yankee fan. I think he's still pissed because they won the World Series last year.
That's true.
He's saying most of their pitchers are due for a regression. So we will see. We will see. Tanaka is going to be the Yankees opening day starter. Yep. And then Alex said something that I can't necessarily say on air.
Yeah, he did.
But let's just say he's very, very excited.
Well, glad we didn't get him on video.
Yes,
we had to censor. Jim would have kicked us out of the studio.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This isn't Barstool Sports, so we can't necessarily talk that. But yes,
So AL East, we both agree. Red Sox, Yankees are in the
Yes.
playoffs. Yankees both winning division. All right,
Yes.
so let's move back to the NL Central here. I'll start this one. I got the St. Louis Cardinals win this division.
Really?
I think the St. Louis Cardinals are going to have the best record in the not in the MLB, in the NL too. I think they're going to be the best team in the National League coming into the playoffs. They add Paul Goldschmidt. They lock him up. They have great underrated starting pitching. They have a solid bullpen. I just think this Cardinals team is going to be back to where they were the last couple of years when they had Albert Pujols, guys like that. Cardinals team wins the Central, which literally you could argue could have every single team in the playoffs. You could argue every single team to at least get a playoff spot in this division. This is an insane division. Continuing on, you have the Brewers, who were one step away from the World Series last year. You have the Cubs, who still have great players. You have the Reds, who have rejuvenated their roster this year, and you never know, could make a run if all their players work out. And then you also have why am I forgetting the fifth team in this division? Who's the fifth team in the NL Central? Oh, the Pirates are a very solid team too. They're probably the worst, but they still, you never know. And they made a run for it at the end of last year, and they have good starting pitching too. I believe they have 3 guys that are top notch. So, but I'm still going to go with the Cardinals. Out of all those 5 teams, the Cardinals have the best team, and I think they will they'll end up with the best record in the National League.
So you don't think the Brewers have another fantastic year like they did and make it to the NLCS?
No, I don't think they made the NLCS, but I do actually think they make the playoffs.
Okay,
the Brewers.
I think the Brewers do. I think Josh Hader is phenomenal.
You're saying they win the NL Central?
I think the Brewers win.
That's fair.
Yeah. And here's the thing, for 2 reasons. Well, a couple. Obviously, you have the MVP in Christian Yelich, right? You have Josh Hader, who you can almost book it that he's going to get like 7 to 8 strikeouts in a game.
Yeah.
Right. And as long as he stays healthy, that kind of I think as a manager to have that, knowing that's one of your aces. I think is great for them. And listen, I think I was reading this earlier, so I'm kind of going to steal this, but I think the Brewers have some unfinished business. Even though they made it to Game 7 of the NLCS last year, I don't think many people at all thought the Brewers would get to where they were, right? So now I don't think they're going to be sneaking up on many people, but they're going to say, hey, listen, we're for real. This isn't like a one-year fluke or a one-year wonder. We have a lot of talent. Now, the one thing I will say is I don't think they really upgraded their starting pitching or their pitching rotation as much. So if Hader goes down, or if they get some,
they rely
injuries,
on their bullpen heavy.
They do, and it worked for them last year. And they're kind of going with that same approach again by not really adding many good pieces to that roster. So that's going to be the issue. Can they stay healthy? Because if they can, for the majority of the season, I think the Brewers win this division. If they can't stay healthy, then I think that's where things tumble, because I don't think they really have other pieces to fall back on, and they're kind of taking that same risk like they did last year. So I have the Brewers winning the division, and I agree with you. I like the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals get in as a wild card.
Yeah. No, those are the 2 best teams clearly in the NL Central. But like I'm saying, this NL Central, like when we're playing other teams, when there's other NL teams, like say the Dodgers having to go play the NL Central, none of those games are going to be slouches. Those are all going to be tough games. Same with the East, except for Miami. So there's 9 teams from those 2 divisions that could make 4 playoff spots. So baseball in the NL should at least be fun next year, and especially in the Central. Moving on to the AL Central. For me, this is a 2-team race, and there's no doubt about it. There's absolutely only 2 teams that can win this division, and I'm going to go with the one that wins it every single year. Although they have an injury to their best player, Francisco Lindor, and Jose Ramirez, they had a scare with, who's their second best hitter, I might have been the batting champion last year. I'm not sure. That might not be untrue, but they are a little injury ridden, and they did lose free agents to begin the season, but they still have an amazing rotation. Corey Kluber, Trevor Bauer, Mike Clevenger, Carlos Carrasco. That's probably the best rotation in the American League. So I'm going to have their pitching is going to win them this division. The other team in this division that could very well win the AL Central is the Minnesota Twins. And it's going to be a 2-team race. One of those teams will win. I'm going to give it to the team that's perennially done it, and a team with a great starting pitching in Cleveland. But Cleveland could lose a couple games in the beginning of the season, and if Minnesota starts hot, watch out for the Twins.
I am going to take Cleveland because of their pitching, and I like defense. I think pitching, as everyone knows, when it comes to playoff time, that's what you need.
Andrew Miller's healthy.
Yeah, you don't have pitching. You can get by in somewhat in the regular season with your all-star bats like Jose Ramirez and Francisco Lindor. But I think at the end of the day, if this team can stay healthy with their starting pitching rotation, then I think the Indians clearly take this division. I think Minnesota can get in as a wild card, but I don't trust Minnesota. Now, I personally don't know enough about Minnesota to sit here and dissect them
at all.
They don't. And am I wrong by saying Minnesota's kind of a younger team?
Oh no, they are absolutely. They are.
Right.
No, they're led by Byron Buxton, who is the number one prospect in baseball and is not even close to showing that. Miguel Sano's had injury problems. Jorge Polanco's young. There's Max Kepler's.
There's not many players on that team that have had postseason experience. Or have really made a run at this.
No, and their one playoff experience, I think, would have been the wild card game against the Yankees. That's it. And that's one game.
So, yeah, if Cleveland stays healthy, but if they stay relatively
it's Cleveland's
healthy,
division to lose. Let's just say that.
I think that's a very true statement.
And I have no teams from the AL Central in the wild card either. So it's just I think Cleveland's making the playoffs.
It's Cleveland and that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
I agree.
All right, moving back to NL West. I have the Dodgers winning this division. Let's say the Diamondbacks add a lot and the Rockies add a lot and the Dodgers kind of regress. I might think about not picking the Dodgers. But those things didn't happen. So I'm sticking with the Dodgers. They've made the World Series twice in a row. Dave Roberts actually believes this team is better than last year's team that made the World Series. So there's that, and you take it with a grain of salt, whatever he's saying. But I think the Dodgers are clearly the best team. I don't see Colorado's pitching being as good as it was last year, especially in Colorado. So I think the Dodgers, this will be a relatively easy division to win for them.
Really? You think so?
Yeah. Because the Giants are terrible. The Padres, they have good players, but they have no pitching, and the Dodgers will just shell them every time they play them. Diamondbacks definitely regressed,
right.
And I believe the Rockies will regress a little bit. So I all of their NL West games, which are their most games, I think will be relatively easy. When you go play the Central and the East, like I mentioned, those are going to be tougher. But winning the NL West will be easy. It's when you get into the playoffs that might be difficult.
See, I think this is a top-heavy division with the Dodgers and the Rockies.
Yeah, no, that's
I think, like you mentioned...
Again, this is just like the AL Central.
The Diamondbacks, the Giants, I think are going to be god-awful.
Yeah.
And then you have the Padres, who have Machado, and they have some nice young pieces. So I think they're going to show some flashes, and I think they'll hover because the Giants and the Diamondbacks are so bad.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to get some nice wins against them. But really, I think this is a two-team race between the Dodgers and the Rockies. The Dodgers, because they have Walker Buehler, Julio Urias. Am I saying that right? Urias or Urias?
It's Julio Urias. You're supposed to say it with a Mexican accent.
Right,
I can't roll my R's, so I can't.
I mean, they signed Joe Kelly to kind of help in the bullpen, so that was kind of an issue for them.
Yeah, that was big. No, that's big.
Right.
That fills a need that Brandon Morrow had when they were in the World Series against Houston. One of the reasons they almost won that World Series was because they had bullpen depth. Last year they didn't have bullpen depth.
Right.
They had no chance against the Red Sox.
The one thing about the Dodgers that concerns me is the health of Kershaw and Kenley Jansen, and the fact that I think both of those guys at this point in their careers aren't really trending up anymore. Obviously, Kershaw, we know he's not even going to be starting to begin the year, and we don't know when he's coming back. And Kenley Jansen, I don't trust him as a closer, and so for those reasons, I'm a little skeptical. I'll pick the Dodgers because of the embarrassment of riches that they have at almost every other position. And the fact that if they do have injuries at other positions, they're shored up there. But can Walker Buehler really kind of take this team and be the leader? Not now that we know that Kershaw probably can't do it for a full season.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So that would be that
is a concern. What I hope with Kenley Jansen is, as a fan, is that his issues last year were as a result of what happened with his heart at the end of the season, and that he comes back and he's okay now, and he just goes back to being the guy that he was. I think that heart condition definitely affected him last year, and he essentially was just throwing balloons up there to some of those hitters in the playoffs. I mean, it was not. You're right. It was definitely scary having him come in. And Kershaw, the Dodgers signed him to a small little extension there. I see the ace of the staff actually being Walker Buehler now, and
I don't think that's a question.
Yeah, no. And so I am relying on that dude to do it for the Dodgers, and not. I expect Clayton Kershaw to still be an all-star and still be a stud, but I want our number one pitcher in Game 1 of the playoffs to be Walker Buehler now.
Right.
I think Walker Buehler
Alex Silva is saying this is the near the end of the Dodgers window. He thinks they have a weak bullpen and questionable rotation.
Well, they have a weak bullpen in the middle, but Joe Kelly and Kenley Jansen. If Kenley Jansen gets back to where he was, that's a.
I think that's a big if.
It's a great. No, it is. Yeah. No, I know. But again, if this
if.
division was tougher, I probably wouldn't say the Dodgers are going to win it. But like the Indians, they'll win it because I think they'll be. They have very good history against the Rockies too overall. So I think they'll do well there. Okay, so let's go to the AL West. We have. Of course, we have the Houston Astros, who have been one of the better teams. The Angels, Oakland, who was in the playoffs last year. Seattle. I don't really think Texas has a chance to win this division. Jed, who do you see winning the AL West?
Listen, this is going to be this is boring news, but I think it's the Astros.
Yeah.
The Astros
Can't be against the Astros, guys.
They
Come
haven't
on.
done anything to show that they're regressing at all, right? You still have Altuve. Hopefully Carlos Correa can stay healthy.
That's true. Yeah, he needs to stay healthy. Yeah,
he does. But I mean, listen, you still have Justin Verlander, who I believe did he sign an extension?
He signed a 2-year extension.
2-year
So
extension.
he's
as
with
well.
them, I believe, for 3 more years.
Right. So I think this team, kind of almost like the Dodgers, I think they have somewhat of an embarrassment of riches. I think this team is just loaded.
Yeah, they do lose Dallas Keuchel, but that also slots in possibly Lance McCullers to get
right.
back.
I think Dallas Keuchel, I liked him, but I didn't think he was really an ace. Maybe going back to his days with the Pirates, but really since or not the Pirates, I'm sorry. I've never really just seen him as like a true ace. I think Verlander is really that guy, and I don't think that's going to be as big of a loss as a lot of people think.
Yeah.
So I listen, Trout for the Angels, that's going to be like the big headline story right now. But I don't really see anyone else in the division. Maybe the Athletics can be kind of a sneaky wild card team, but I think the Astros, this is it.
I think the Astros win the division too, because, like you mentioned, great starting rotation, led by one of the best pitchers in baseball, and they have 4 guys, Bregman, Springer, Altuve, and Correa, who are outstanding when healthy. So, and Bregman, who was probably the 4th guy in that ranks, I actually think might be the best player on that team, might be the best hitter. So they're really good. As far as the wild card goes, because I do have one more wild card spot to go, I actually think the Angels will find a way to get into the playoffs, and I think they'll actually be the top wild card. I mentioned the Red Sox, I think are going to make it because this AL is kind of a little bit weak in the bottom sense. I think the Angels will make the wild card. I think that they'll jump on this Mike Trout hype, and they'll win a couple games at the beginning of the season. They'll stay healthy. I think their pitching will finally stay relatively healthy, and they will make the wild card. Unfortunately, they'd have to play the Yankees if they made the division. So I'm not saying they're going any further than the wild card game or at least the division series. But I got the Angels making the playoffs.
I'm not going to believe that until I see that, and that's for. I mean, listen, Andrew Heaney, I believe, is already on the DL. Right, so right there,
there's probably already 4 guys on the DL today.
That's already one of your supposed starters who is out.
You know who the number 1 guy is that's going on opening day?
Oh my God,
Trevor Cahill, Jared. Do you know who that is?
That's not.
You don't know who that is, do you?
I do know who Trevor Cahill is, but that's not a good thing, right? Yeah. I mean, listen, they brought in Matt Harvey, which I'm not a big fan of at all. This team is made up of Mike Trout and really everyone else because I don't trust their starting pitching at all. I don't even think they have a real true closer in my opinion. I think it's going to be somewhat of a rotation of guys.
Well, they did sign Cody Allen though, who did have a regressing year with the Indians. So yeah, it is kind of wild card, but he's definitely had some closing experience. So I disagree. I think they as far as the rest of the bullpen goes, you're right. I have no idea who the rest of the bullpen is, but I think closing, specifically the position, they might be okay with if Cody Allen doesn't suck like he did last year.
Here's the one. Okay, if Shohei Ohtani can bat for the entire season, we know he's not going to pitch. But if he can have a good hitting season and be that complement to Mike Trout, because right now I'm not confident in saying that any other player, including Cole Calhoun, including Justin Upton, obviously including Pujols, that can be consistent enough to be the Robin to Mike Trout's Batman. Yeah. So if Shohei Ohtani can do that and be consistent from a hitting standpoint, maybe I see the Angels squeezing in. But the lack of confidence I have in their pitching and the fact that I don't think they have a lot of good depth, I don't see this team making.
So
the playoffs.
who were your wild card teams again?
Wild card.
You had the Red Sox, and who else are you putting in?
Red Sox. So I think I excluded the Twins. I think I took them out.
Because it's pretty much it's between like the Rays.
I'm gonna say the Athletics.
You're gonna say the Athletics
Yeah,
make it again?
I'm gonna say the Athletics, and I like the Twins, but they're just really, really young, and I don't think they have a lot of experience, like you mentioned, other than that one wild card game.
No, they definitely need like a horse. Jose Barrios has not been there. You know, he's still young. Again, another young guy. But they did sign Jake Odorizzi last year, but he didn't do anything. So they need, maybe go out and sign Dallas Keuchel, right? Maybe go out and sign him. We are going a little bit over time, guys, just because we need to fill all this in. So just recap, who were your playoff teams in the AL and NL? Give me your 10 teams.
So in the AL, I have the Yankees winning the division, the Red Sox as the wild card. I have the Cleveland Indians coming out of the Central. And then in the West, I have Houston winning, and I'm going to give the Athletics the other wild card.
And then the NL?
In the NL, I have the Atlanta Braves, and then I have the Phillies as the wild card. The Central, I've got the Brewers, and then I have the Cardinals coming out as the wild card, and then in the West, I have the Dodgers.
All right, so for mine, the AL, I have Houston, Cleveland, and the Yankees winning the divisions. And I got the Red Sox and the Angels in the wild card. Angels being top wild card, Red Sox being second wild card. And then the NL, Dodgers, Cardinals, and Braves winning their divisions. And I got the Brewers and Nationals being in the wild card game. Real quick, we got 2.5 minutes. We're going to 11:05 today. Jared, give me your 2 MVPs, and then I'll give my 2 MVPs.
I'm gonna go in the NL, Christian Yelich.
Okay,
I think
you're going back to back.
I think back to back.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I think
that's a there you
bold
go.
statement, Cotton. Yeah, I know.
Absolutely.
I think he really carries the Brewers. And yeah, I think he becomes.
And you have the win division, so that makes sense.
And I do. I have the win division.
That does make sense.
And then in the AL, I don't really think it's a question with Trout. I think that's.
I agree. I also have Trout. I think he's going to have a ridiculous year this year. I think he's going to have 40 home runs, he'll over 300. And then I had them making the playoffs, so that's one of the reasons. And then in the NL, I'm going Paul Goldschmidt. I got the Cardinals being the best team in the National League. I'm going to go with Goldschmidt. I think he's safe. Although the park is a little harder to hit in than, say, Arizona, I think Goldschmidt, besides the beginning of last year, has been one of the most consistent players in baseball. So I think he wins the NL.
Who are your Cy Youngs?
Cy Youngs. I'm going to go a couple of interesting guys here, both kind of local in a way. I got Trevor Bauer coming out of Cleveland. Because I think, like I said, I think Cleveland, this is one of those, the reason I'm going to pick both these Cy Youngs, and my other Cy Young is Walker Buehler of the Dodgers, because I think they're going to get a lot of wins and build up stats playing kind of bad teams in their divisions. So if it's a close race, I think Trevor Bauer will lead the Indians to the playoffs. I think Walker Buehler will be the number one guy for the Dodgers. I think he'll lead the Dodgers, but I think they'll get some wins, say, against the Padres or Giants or Diamondbacks or Rockies. And I think Bauer will get wins against, horrendous teams like Kansas City, Chicago. The Twins aren't the best team, and then Detroit. I think their stats will be good enough. Not only are they making the playoffs, but their stats will be good because they're playing bad teams. So I think those two teams, or those two guys, win.
Okay, so I actually agree with you with the Dodgers. I really like Walker Buehler, and I think he's going to. By the end of the season, I think he's gonna slide in as that true ace of the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to Kershaw, but I think his injury history has just proven that you can't count on him for full seasons and for him to be the best pitcher in baseball like he used to. I think that period of his career is over with.
Yeah.
So I think Walker Buehler steps in, and like you mentioned, because that division is so top heavy and so weak at the bottom,
he'll get some wins and his
exactly. I think it will inflate his stats a little bit. And then in the AL, I'm actually going Chris Sale. I think Chris Sale has a dominant, and that's it's not a surprise. It's not like a crazy, oh my gosh, you're going outside of the box. But I think with how dominant I think this team can be, I think Chris Sale is going to be able to play with a lead the majority of the games that he's in. And he's still just, I think, one of the best dominant lefties in the game. So
absolutely.
I got Chris Sale in the AL.
All right, there you go. You hear the music right there if you're listening on OC Rock Radio or YouTube. Real quick, I wanted to give Alex Silva's 2 MVPs and 2 Cy Young's here. He's got Aaron Judge in the end for MVP.
Of course,
who would have guessed that?
Staying
one?
with the homer.
And then he's got one of Javier Baez, Paul Goldschmidt, or Christian Yelich being the MVP in the NL. His Cy Young's Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, not going to argue with those two. And he also threw his Rookie of the Years in Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Fernando Tatis Jr., which I could also see those two guys being Rookie of the Years. But so, yeah, that's the end of this Cover 2 podcast. Next week, I'm sure we'll have some news about, we'll be talking about March Madness again, maybe some NFL news with this draft coming up, and then we'll see if anything happens in the baseball season. But for Nick Nenad,
I'm Jared Smith.
This has been the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio and on Facebook Live.